everyone, and welcome to A Broad's Way Through Broadway. I'm your host, The Broad, and today we are discussing Lucky Stiff. I'm here with Jim Van Deusen. Hi, Jim. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Allison. How are you?
I'm great. This is really exciting to have you on here to talk about Lucky Stiff, which is a show that is my first, I'm going to say this is my first episode of a show that's wildly unpopular. So Lucky Stiff, you guys, as far as the show goes, it's not super well known. It was never actually on Broadway, only in the West End production and Off-Broadway. It debuted Off-Broadway, let's see, in 1988. Oh, let's see, I was born. And it played for a whopping 15 performances. It's so sad. And there was also a movie that received mostly negative reviews in 2015, which I would agree with. Probably not the greatest film of a musical that I very much like. And we got composer and lyricist Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens on this one, a favorite duo of mine in particular. So yeah, Lucky Stiff. So Jim, why you said, I was looking for guests on my show here, and you responded that you've played this show before, you've been part of it. What's your situation with this one?
I have played it. I have played it twice. Once I did a 2-week run in Chicago.
Ooh.
for a local community group, a while back, and so I played it there, and then one time I did it in Madison for another local community group.
Okay.
It's a fun show, but like you said, it's not the most popular show.
No,
people don't know about it.
Yeah,
they just don't know. They don't know about, they don't know the story. They don't know. It's like, a lot of people. If you think when you say Rent, everybody knows Rent.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't know Tick Tick Boom.
I love Tick Tick Boom.
I love that show, and it's like I actually, there are points where I like Tick Tick Boom more than I like Rent. Same. In some instances. Mm-hmm. And what's nice about Tick Tick Boom, especially what we've been dealing with in the last year with the pandemic, is like that's a 3-person show.
Yep.
And a lot of people could be doing it, but nobody does it because what is that? Nobody knows that it's actually the prequel to Rent. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and with Lucky Stiff, it's kind of, it's in a way, it's like that.
Yeah. Well, and it's a musical farce, and farces are there's I feel like there's more straight play farces than musical farces, but for people who like farces and also like musicals, it's like, gosh, this is something that's kind of right up your alley. You got mistaken identities and just kind of craziness. Yep. I feel like it's wildly underappreciated because I think it's a fantastic score. It's a goofy, fun story. It's very enjoyable. It's not very long. I'm a huge fan of short shows because that's just my thing. It's a nice short show. But you're right. I don't think it's chosen very often for community theater, high school theater, or even semi-professional theater because it isn't well known, and therefore financially it doesn't always do super great. Especially in times when money is a thing. Obviously, you don't want to put on a show for this amount and then barely be able to break even in ticket sales because no one knows what the show is. And I do admit that even like the general like kind of plot line of the show, it not that it doesn't sound appealing, but it almost sounds too confusing. I feel like the best way to sell or market the show is that it's a musical farce. Like for me, that's enough to pull me in. Like that sounds really fun. A musical farce sounds really fun. But you're right. It's, sometimes I think there's been, I think in the last 10 years or so, I've only seen 2 local theaters put this on.
Right. It's like you said, it's not, nobody knows it. And it's, there are so many other, you could call it comical farces of musicals out there.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's just like, well, you've heard of this, but why haven't you heard of Lucky Stiff? It's just, people, it's really amazing. Well, if you say, well, we're going to do Shrek, everybody knows Shrek.
Yeah.
But if you say Lucky Stiff or Tick Tick Boom or something, in that area, even some people don't even know Little Women. And Little Women is a great show.
Yeah.
And and obviously it's a little bit more known, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who don't even know about, well, what is Little Women? Oh, are you kidding me? Little Women is awesome. It's a terrific show.
I feel like theater people know Little Women really well, but general community, it's kind of like the Fantastics. I feel like the Fantastics is like that. If your theater is located in a community where theater is a big thing and you got lots of theater nerds around, your production of Fantastics will sell really well. If it's kind of, I'm going to use my theater for an example. I'm out in the sticks, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, where the theater community is it's not a theater. There's not really a theater community. It's just kind of non-theater people. They're not going to have any idea what the Fantastics is. Same goes for Lucky Stiff. That said, I do want to do Lucky Stiff at the Box Theater, despite that it's like, yeah, it's not going to be a big seller, but I love the show, and it's weird that, like, Seussical, for instance. I feel like Seussical is a pretty well-known show, and Seussical is written by the same guys who did, or the same team who did Lucky Stiff. So, even I know we're gonna get into Flaherty and Aaron's, because I'm sure you've played a handful of their other works as well.
Seussical is like one of my favorite shows to play. I mean, it's so great. It's so happy. It's so it's funny. It's comical. It's so musically, as a musician, it's so fun to play, and it is not easy. A lot of people think that it's tongue in cheek, kind of da 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 da, and it is not. It is a lot harder and intricate than people think.
It is. You know Seussical, and I feel like a lot of theater people know Seussical, and Seussical is also a very, very popular choice for theaters to do, because even if you're not familiar with Seussical, the show, people hear Seuss, and you go, oh, well, I know that, and maybe my kid will enjoy that, or I grew up with those books, that interests me. So even when I come across, I work with children in theater, and even when I mention Lucky Stiff to them, and they I don't know that show, and I tell them, oh, you'd like it. It's the same composer and lyricist as Seussical. And they're, oh, I love Seussical. And that interests them in at least the music, because as we'll get into later too, the stylistic choices of Flaherty and Aaron's does definitely carry over. And I'd love to get your take on that as well, as a musician. Because since you're the one literally playing the music of this team, the running themes that go from show to show, despite how different their shows are, like plot wise and things like that, I feel like they definitely have a certain kind of ring to their scores that does carry over from show to show. Now we kind of jumped into this a little quickly. What type of musician are you? We keep saying you've played this show and played that show, so we should probably specify what you've done.
Well, okay, so everybody, it's kind of funny because I have a master's degree in trombone performance, and I studied with the principal trombonist Megumi from the symphony for my grad work. So that's my main instrument. Okay,
but you don't do that much anymore.
No, I don't. Unfortunately. But everybody in town, because I have really elevated my own personal growth as a musician, as a percussionist, everybody in town knows me as a percussionist.
Right.
And I've played between my trombone and playing percussion and conducting. I've conducted, a lot of shows. I probably have done, I think my last total was like over 227 shows.
Wow.
So, I love musical theater, and, a few years ago I did 14 shows in 9 months.
Wow.
Working with people such as yourself and other musicians and directors and, actors and singers, it's a wonderful thing. But I mean, everybody knows me as percussionist because that is what I do. And I had the opportunity to improve my craft even more while spending a week as one of 10 percussionists working on Broadway 2 years ago.
Awesome. What show?
I got to work on Frozen.
Oh, that's right.
I tell you, Allison, it's a different world in New York. And it was, I mean, I had to send a video in and they had to okay it. And then they sent me music. I had to learn the music. I had 10 days to learn the show. Now, 10 days doing community theater is a lot different than 10 days working on Broadway.
Yeah.
And so for the first 2 days that I spent in New York working with the percussionists of Frozen, they were 2 6-hour day rehearsals.
Wow.
So, but I mean, it's amazing. It's a different world and a different thing. But coming out of that, it was like, and then when you go into the pit and you're sitting there next to that drummer who makes a living doing that show, and he says, okay, Jim, let's switch. That is a very nerve-wracking thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but I tell you, my percussion playing and the way I approach musicals now
is different.
Is totally different.
Wow.
And things that I thought I could never do, there's nothing I can't do now after that 1 week of intense training and playing. And when you hear a guy who does this for a living on Broadway, and he says, Jim, you are doing so well. He says, if you were in New York, I could use you as a sub. I mean, to hear that, that speaks to a lot, especially, like I said, trombone is my main instrument. I've been playing trombone since I was 11, so 45 plus years.
Yeah, this is your secondary instrument.
This is my secondary instrument. And so to hear a guy say that and we're Facebook friends and we chat every once in a while, and the other percussionists that I got to meet who play shows in New York, they're now Facebook friends and guys who are touring because of the connections I made. I know, and the insight is incredible.
So would you do it again?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Wow.
And I've always, and when I was, I was an educator. I was a high school, middle school band director for 30 years.
Right.
And so when I was teaching, I always wanted to get better as a musician. So if I got better, I know my students would get better. And I still do that now, even though I'm not teaching.
Yeah.
But I still practice and I still do that. But my secondary instrument now is the percussion world. And because my skills have improved by just that 1 week, it's like night and day. It's incredible.
I love what you said about like after going through something like that, like how it's shifted your attitude and certain work things about kind of the smaller scale kind of thing. Because I feel like that is so true in so many things, that once you do this, all these other things are suddenly, these other things that maybe used to stress you out, in comparison, are going to seem like cake now.
Oh, it is. That's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm doing now, I did my first show last month in April, in over a year, just like just about everybody else. And I did the show working at a local high school. It was phenomenal. It was great. But I worked with 3 other musicians who were really prominent in the area, and I felt like I was like blowing them away because what I took back even from 2 years ago, it's amazing what my skill can do. And some things, it's like you practice and you practice and you practice, and it's like, okay, it's getting better, but it's not clicking yet. But now everything just like clicks.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. It was truly enlightening.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I love that I love that you're able to like share that with us, because what I haven't had on this show yet, I have a couple hosts who have seen things on Broadway. I have one co-host who's been on a couple episodes. I don't know if you know him, Matt Zembrowski. Yeah, you know Matt. And he obviously, goes to New York in non-pandemic times. He goes to New York like 3 times a year, and he always goes to meet the Broadway actors at the stage door. So he has so many fun stories about, you know, meeting these people and what they seemed like, and fun little short conversations he's had with them, as well as just all those experiences of just seeing a lot of Broadway shows, even some like workshop shows and things like that. But I haven't had anyone on the show yet. He's actually worked on Broadway. So I love that you're able to like share that kind of experience with us, especially from a musician standpoint, because you're also my first, you know, like kind of pit orchestra person that I've had on the show. So that's really cool. So, but let me ask you, so with Lucky Stiff, did you, when you did the first time you did the show, because you said you did it twice?
Yes.
You worked the show twice?
Yep.
So the first time you did it, were you playing trombone or drums in that one?
I played trombone for the first one. The first time.
Okay, and what were your first impressions of the show? Like
the show,
when they pitched you for it?
It was a show, and I love doing musical theater. So it didn't matter, and the chance to work down in Chicago.
Okay.
So it was fun.
Yeah.
It was in northern Chicago, Drury Lane.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, down there.
Yeah.
So I got to work there because the guy who they had hired all of a sudden couldn't do it, and somebody in the orchestra who knew me said, "Hey, I got this guy up in the Milwaukee area," and so I did that, and it was great.
Do you remember how? Just out of curiosity, do you remember how the show did, like ticket wise? Like, was there a crowd for it? No, it wasn't.
It was.
So
I would
sad.
say. I think it is. It's about, I would say, half to 3/4 full in the audience.
Okay.
And I think Drury Lane, I think you can put, I don't know, 600, 700 maybe.
Yeah.
And so, you have, 400 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did it in Madison, I got to play percussion, which was, even better.
Okay.
Now, this was, I think 6 or 7 years ago. And there was some tricky stuff. Obviously, as a percussionist, it's my secondary instrument. Trombone is like, okay, I read it down, play it. It's a breeze.
Yeah.
Percussion is like, okay, as a drummer, you drive. I call it, you drive the bus. You run. The conductor says 1, 2, 3, 4, and you got to hold it there because everybody else is following you.
Yes. So was it it was a small orchestra both times, right? Because this show is not, it's not a big cast.
Nope.
And I love shows too that are small casts. I'm a big stickler for like small to medium casts. It's not a big cast. The ensemble is typically, it's one of those really fun shows where the ensemble, it's not like, 80 townspeople and then 80 customers and things like that. It's typically like 3 to 4 people, like usually 2 men and 2 women, who cover a total of like 40 different characters. Among the 4 of them, they cover 40 characters. It is so fun. And I remember I have to be biased. It was so fun because that's the character I played. I was one of the 4 ensemble members. But when we did the show over at Sunset Playhouse, which is a local theater just outside Milwaukee, and our orchestra, I want to say, was piano, drums, and maybe a woodwind player, I think. It was small. It was definite. I feel like it was only 3
It probably
people.
had a piano, bass, drums, and it had a bass. It probably had to have some kind of bottom on it.
Okay.
But I think you said it right. I think they had a woodwind player.
I think so.
And that was it. And how many years was this ago?
So this would have been 2014 or 15. 2014 or 15. So about 6-7 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't terribly long ago. It was super fun. I was vaguely familiar with the show. Not a lot. I was drawn to the show. For those of you who know me, this is going to make the most sense ever. I was drawn to the show because I had heard the song she sings about the dogs, that she sings, the main character sings this song about that you don't need a man, you don't need love, you just need a dog.
Yep.
Like all that's needed is a dog. And I heard this song and was like, oh, well, okay. Because they say the show is like, it's about dogs, but it also kind of isn't. That isn't the main plot. There's usually like dogs or paw prints on the poster for the show.
Right.
Because it's about this character who plays this person who volunteers at this animal shelter, this dog shelter, and she's trying to get donations and money to give to this dog shelter. But that's not actually that doesn't actually have a whole lot to do with the actual plot of the show. So I feel like it's kind of like this roundabout way to get people interested, like people like dog people like me to be like, oh, wait, is there dogs in the show? There's actually not. There's very little to do with dogs in the show, but it drew you in.
That's right. You got dogs in the show. I will be there. What time is the show?
Yeah, right. Times like this. That's what it's called. At times like this, a girl could use a dog. Yeah, I heard that number. And I thought this was such an adorably sweet song. So naturally, I auditioned hoping to get the character who sings that song because I feel like, well, this song is my anthem. This song is like the story of my life, basically. But I ended up getting cast in the ensemble, which I didn't know at the time was a tiny ensemble covering 800,000 different roles. And once that was explained to me, I was like, oh, well, that sounds like a total blast, actually. And because it's like scene stealing roles. And you never know who these 4 actors are going to come out as next. There's different, they're different accents, they're different personalities, and it's so fun. And there was a dog in our production, my dog Maestro. He did make an appearance during the curtain call.
There you go. It's a win-win situation for you.
It's totally a win-win. Donna Kummer, as you know, is a big dog person, and I think she was the advocate for, well, you have to put the dog in the curtain call. He's downstairs in the dressing room anyway. So
it sounds like at Sunset when we did the whole month of December. Now this was like 10 years ago with Donna Kummer. It was 10 years ago. We did a whole month of Annie.
Oh my gosh!
Well, they had they brought a real live Labrador Retriever for the show, for every show. So
that was Lucky Stiff was my dog's first appearance, but he's also played Sandy and Annie. He's only a Yorkie, so he's kind of like this little miniature Sandy, but he's so good on stage. He's so well behaved and consistent, and he doesn't need a leash or anything like that. He can do everything off leash and doesn't leave the stage and likes being by the actors. So it's like it works out beautifully. I should do an episode about animals on stage.
There you go.
There could totally be a whole episode on this show about putting dogs on stage with people, stage dogs.
Perfect. Perfect.
So I don't know. Let me ask you this, Jim. I don't know if you follow this kind of stuff, but I was looking into the like original cast, like the workshop cast and the Off-Broadway cast and the cast recording cast of Lucky Stiff, and I didn't find a lot of like names of people that I know. And I'm a big Broadway name person. I know a lot of names, and I did not recognize anyone except for Janet Metz, who was in one of the cast recordings of Lucky Stiff. It was either the London recording or the Off-Broadway recording. Janet Metz, she was one of the cast recordings narrators in Joseph, the one with Donny Osmond.
Okay.
Which I want to say that's maybe the Canadian one, but it's the Donny Osmond, Janet Metz version of Joseph. That's how I know her, and she played Annabelle. Other than her, as I was looking into like different casts of this, you know, this show was not full of any. When I say it's not full of any big Broadway names, it didn't like have any, and I find that interesting because Seussical it was a recent episode I did on the show. We talked about Seussical, and we talked about how which was another Aaron's and Flaherty show as we talked about. When Seussical first went up, it was not well received, and they ended up putting during the second like kind of attempt at the show, they ended up taking out a bunch of these kind of quote unquote nobodies on stage and replaced them with Rosie O'Donnell as the cat in Seussical, and Aaron Carter as the Jojo, as the boy, to see if that would help the show along with, you know, publicity and popularity. And it did help. It did help. And I'm just wondering, like, I look at seeing that, you know, the show was not super well received. It wasn't very popular. A lot of people didn't come see it. It only lasted for 15 performances. And I was just thinking, like, why didn't they do what they did with Seussical, you know, and throw some celebrities in there and get the people in there? But I don't know if this was Lucky Stiff, if it was before Seussical or it would have been before Seussical, because this was Aaron's and Flaherty's very first collaboration.
You know, I heard that the same thing about Seussical. I had heard that they didn't have any. They didn't have anybody in who had a Broadway name
right in
the cast, and so they did, like you said, go back and insert people who had a name
Yes.
in whether it be TV or wherever, and to boost the notoriety of the show. And it's like with Lucky Stiff, it's like, well, I don't know if it was because they decided, well, it's not good doing well. We only have 15 performances. Why do it?
Yeah.
Why take the time to do it and the money to do it? And it's like, well, you throw your hands up in the air and just, who knows?
And I wonder if that, and I'm totally taking a stab in the dark here, but with this being Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty's first collaboration and Seussical being a bit later, maybe this was something that, they were maybe thinking, this is our first attempt. It didn't go well. We'll treat it as a learning experience and try to figure out some different things for the next show, for the next collaboration, something like that. It's almost like you said, almost like they're sort of threw their hands up and like, oh, well, it didn't work. Whereas then when Seussical came along, maybe they had more faith in Seussical and were a little bit more insistent on, no, this show is good. People will like it. We just got to futz with something here. It might, maybe that, I don't know.
And like you said in the beginning of our podcast, is like with Seussical, everybody knows Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
So already it has a much bigger name than Lucky Stiff.
Right.
And I think you're 100% accurate when they say that your naming of Seuss, Seussical the musical. Well, everybody knows Dr. Seuss. Okay, so we've already got interest. Where they've got Lucky Stiff, it's like, well, we're not doing too well. We're only going to do 15 shows, and then why we're going to put we're going to focus somewhere else. We're going to put our attention towards Seussical, and if it happens again, then we've got to take another step, and that's why maybe they did decide to bring in a little bit more the names into it to boost that, and then away it went.
Yeah, you brought up a good point too. There's so much in the name of the musical. Lucky Stiff, it's like you don't have any information on what the show is or what it's about, from that. The show was based on a book, a novel. And let's see, the novel was called The Man Who Broke the Bank at Monte Carlo. I mean, that gives you, I guess, a little more information, but not a whole lot. And Seussical, like, I'm going to use our current production at the Box Theater right now. We're in the middle of a production called Tinkerbell. It is not a musical, so that automatically hurts its chances right there, because musicals typically, at least in community theater, musicals sell better than plays. But the fact that the show is called Tinkerbell, it's a name. It's something that when people see it on a promotion or some sort of marketing or something on social media, they see the little logo with the fairy, and they go, oh, well, my kid loves Tinkerbell, so I'll go. They don't need any more information. And I feel like the Lucky Stiff, it's like, unfortunately, it's like the title, there's nothing drawing about the title. So that, also, probably hurt them too. It's just such a shame. Like, and I can't stress that enough because the show is so funny and the music is so great. Well, listen, Jim, I think it's about time for us to take a quick break here. When we get back, I definitely want to talk about a little more production aspects. I'm interested in a couple things, especially from the music side of point, where that's your expertise. And we can also maybe talk about some of our favorite parts about this show too. So we're gonna take a short break, so sit tight, and we'll be right back in a couple minutes after this word from our friends at 6-5 Media.
Welcome to our new podcast. Welcome to our new podcast.
This isn't working.
Agreed. I think we're going to have to do it turn by turn.
Well, now that you mention it, we are a brand new RPG video game podcast.
Our very existence hinges on turn-based gaming.
So join us on the Turn by Turn podcast, where we'll be talking about
Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Golden Sun, Shining Force, Mother, and so many more.
It's your turn to come and join us.
One heist, 6 plots for betrayal. When Raya Cautela cons 5 other thieves into helping her steal a magical artifact from the most powerful man in the world, she knows she's playing with fire. What she doesn't know is that the rest of her crew is just as underhanded as she is, and they all have plans of their own. M.J. Kuhn's Among Thieves, a fantasy heist novel full of twists, turns, and betrayal, available beginning September 7th wherever books are sold. Visit mjkuhn.com for more details.
We're back. I hope you enjoyed intermission. How was your intermission, Jim?
Perfect.
So we're here on A Broadway through Broadway talking about Lucky Stiff, this completely underrated show that no one's ever heard of, that I love and Jim loves. And
Yep.
So as we were saying a little bit before, the show did not do great. I was going to say on Broadway, not on Broadway. Off-Broadway and in the London West End. I feel like it's people who go to see it, they like it, but the problem is not enough people go see it in the first place.
Right.
So I came up with a dream cast. So for when I'm directing the show on Broadway, when it finally gets to Broadway, I'm throwing in a couple people to bring in the ticket sales, but also
and it'll be magnificent. It'll be stellar. It'll go on for 4 or 5 years or 15 years instead of 15 dates.
And you'll be my drummer.
Absolutely. Just call me up when the first rehearsal is.
So here's my situation. So the main character in this show is this British guy named Harry Witherspoon, and I'm casting Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter, as Harry, because I saw Daniel Radcliffe perform the main character in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. He was marvelous. Like, yes, I went to see him because it's Harry Potter and he'll be singing and tap dancing, so that's awesome. But honestly, I really thought he was absolutely fabulous. I don't think this was one of those things where it's like, he's just a name, throw him in there, we don't care how he does, we don't care if he does well, it's Harry Potter, he'll sell tickets. He legit was fantastic. And so double positive, it's not just a name. Like, yeah, he is a name. He'll help sell tickets. And on top of that, he's actually very, very, very good. So he's my Harry. And then I'm throwing in, now she might have not helped sell tickets back when the show first went up, because I feel like she's not the biggest name in the world, nor was she like the biggest name when the show first came out back in the 80s. I don't even know if she even was on Broadway back then, but Amy Spanger, do you know who that is?
Name sounds familiar.
So Tick Tick Boom, right?
Yep.
That's Tick Tick Boom.
Yep.
She's the woman in Tick Tick Boom who sings "Come to
That's
Your
why
Senses."
I don't know. Yep. That's why. Yep.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so
Good choice.
Yeah, I have her actually as Rita. Rita is she's not the ingenue female romantic lead. She's the supporting, kind of like New York broad, tough, kind of ditzy character. Really, really fun character, Rita. And I feel like Amy Spanger vocally and comedically is really appropriate. And if this were going on right now, she's a big enough name to get butts in the seats, I think. And then of course, obviously, I have my orchestra set because I have you and my drummer, and you'd bring some other musicians with you.
I got that orchestra fixed already for you.
Awesome. So
we're ready for opening night,
right? let me just call up Harry Potter here, and we'll.
Okay.
So like I said, this was the first collaboration of Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens. For those of you who aren't familiar with them, they also did Ragtime, Seussical, Anastasia, Once on This Island, and then the lesser known shows, My Favorite Year and Rocky the Musical. They've done a handful of other things too, but I feel like those are their. Did I miss any of their like bigger name shows? Seussical, Ragtime.
No, I think you got them.
Yeah, Once on This Island.
Especially with Ragtime.
Yep, Ragtime. Yeah, I feel like that's probably their biggest one. And then Anastasia has become extremely, extremely popular too. So let me ask you something. Of those ones that I mentioned, Ragtime, Seussical, Once on This Island, have you played any of those shows? I'm sure you have.
Yep, I've played. Actually, I played all of them.
Okay.
I played. I got to conduct Ragtime 4 times.
Okay.
and that's a heavy score, and it's a big orchestra, huge orchestra. It's the only orchestra I know that has an actual tuba book. Believe it or not.
A book just for the tuba player?
Yes, just for the tuba player.
Wow.
It's amazing. And they have another book with just banjo.
Okay.
And it's just really the rest of it is like it's a full orchestration. Strings, woodwinds, brass, percussion, and then you have a tuba, and then you have just not a guitar player. There's no guitar book. At least on the one I use.
That's random.
but they have a banjo book. They've got a banjo book and a tuba book. And we had a great person when we did it up here in Milwaukee area. I had a friend of mine who plays tuba down in northern Chicago, and he came up and made the commute every day from northern Chicago to play ragtime. And he was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And he had a regular concert tuba, and he brought a sousaphone because there's a couple of songs in there that really sound better with like a marching sousaphone. So we did ragtime, Sousical. Oh, it's so much fun to play. So and what a lot of people I get to do on my end is as a drummer now, is when they ask me, "Will you play drums?" Sure, of course I'll play drums. And then then we have to have somebody conduct the pit. Well, I can do that too from the drum set.
Wait, you can conduct from the drum set?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's actually a lot easier than sitting there with a baton in my hand.
Really?
So, and I'll explain why. Is like if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and guess what they have to do? They have to follow me. They have to follow my playing. Yeah. So I don't have to conduct any really thing unless I'm not playing. If there's no drums, then I just use my drumstick as a baton to conduct the pit, and everybody follow, and it works.
Wow.
Just like if you had a regular conductor in the pit.
Yeah.
But your drummer is actually conducting the pit.
I didn't think of it that way, but that does make a lot of sense of why that would actually work.
Right, and a lot of shows. In fact, most of the shows that I have played on drums, I conduct from the drum set.
Which one do you think is the hardest? Like between from drummer's standpoint, the score of Ragtime, Sousical, Once on this Island, or Lucky Steph. Do you feel like one is it Ragtime?
The score itself is complex as far as Ragtime goes, but as far to play it, it's not as hard. Sousical is by far harder.
Okay.
And as a percussionist, there's a drum book, but then there is a auxiliary percussion book that is just it's as hard as if you were playing West Side Story. Okay. It's really. You've got everything but the kitchen sink because you got all the little toys and honkers and shakers and then you have xylophone, which adds so much, and bells and timpani and all sorts of stuff.
Well, and also Sousical, I'm looking at like Once on this Island, Anastasia, Ragtime, and Lucky Stiff. There's breaks where the actors are just talking for a while.
Yep.
Sousical doesn't have that.
No,
it's constant.
It's pretty much constant, and Ragtime is a little bit like that. Is a constant, but I mean, there's a lot of dialogue obviously in Ragtime. But Sousical is about the closest thing to, I would say, which is my favorite show, is Les Mis is my favorite show, and you know as well as I do there is no dialogue.
Yeah, it's all music. Yeah,
right. And Sousical is about the closest thing you can find to Les Mis as far as music. So the musicians are constantly concentrating, constantly playing, and like I said, it is not easy. A lot of people think it's not that hard, but it is. No, well, there's an intricacy.
The handful of shows, and I always think about that when I'm directing shows or when I'm in shows. If I'm in a show where it is one of those ones where it is entirely sung and there's no dialogue, I think about it's like, gosh, those musicians, like when we did I was in a production of Joseph, but we used accompaniment tracks. We didn't have a live orchestra. And I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, because that's Joseph's another one where there's no dialogue, there's no speaking. That's just song into song into song into song.
Yep.
But Joseph is short. That's the thing. Yes. Joseph is short. Like that show is only like an hour and 10 minutes long. Les Mis is like a century long, and there's like hardly any dialogue, so it's just like go 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 go.
Yeah, that first
exhausting.
That first act of, I mean, when I was when I first conducted Les Mis, and I've conducted probably Les Mis, I think 8 times. I've conducted Les Mis 8 times, and I played in the pit only once, but I've conducted Les Mis. But I remember the first time when I was learning the score, I knew that that first act was going to be an hour and a half, and it's constantly moving my shoulders. I can't tell you how many weights and exercises for my shoulders and arms I did prior to that, and boy, did that save me, because every time I hear somebody saying, "Oh yeah, I conducted Les Mis," boy, my arms and my shoulders, exactly, sore shoulders and sore arms, and it's like when I was ready, when we did tech and we did the shows, it was a breeze. I mean, but it's constant playing, and with Seussical, it's like that. Ragtime. You have dialogue, you have little breaks here. You can kind of it's a little bit, not too much, but it's not too bad. It's a long show. It's 2:20, something like that, give or take?
Yeah, it's not as long as Les Mis, but it's definitely, I think, longer than Lucky Stiff for sure. Lucky Stiff is real short. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, Ragtime is just like, you have that. So you have a little time to break, but for the most part, it keeps going. You know, there's music because you have underscore that's got to be played and stuff under the dialogue. But
but at least there's occasional moments where it's like, okay, we have like a page and a half of just sitting here. Like, that's so. I'm so glad you're able to do this because of the, like I said, I haven't had any pit orchestra members on the show yet, so that's really interesting. So let me ask you, did you see the film version of Lucky Stiff? Have you ever seen it?
No.
Good.
Nope.
Good. I did. I watched it. I watched it after I was in it. I don't even know if the movie was even like out. I feel like the movie came out actually the year that I was. And let me see when this movie was. 2015. Yeah, and that like I said, I think that was the year.
You did
I said 2014 or 15 when I was in it. So yeah. So either way, I saw this after I was in it, and I don't know. I feel like so it was so cartoony, and yes, it's a musical farce, so there is an element of cartooniness to it, but it wasn't. Right. I don't feel that it was executed well as in the film, and I don't know if it's a matter of it wasn't executed well just because it wasn't, or if it wasn't executed well because this just should not be
a film.
It shouldn't be if it shouldn't be a film, because some things just simply, even if you have like the best director and the best effects and the best cast and the best everything, some stuff just doesn't work on film, just like some stuff doesn't work on stage. Like,
right.
It goes both ways. Some things are just meant for a certain platform, and that's the best way to have them received.
Do you remember the movie? Are you familiar with the musical The Wiz?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you remember seeing the movie?
I don't remember. I did see it, but I was really young and I don't remember it.
Okay, so going back to what we discussed earlier about getting named people into. So in the movie, as Dorothy, you had Diana Ross.
Right.
And as the Scarecrow, you had Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. And you had Nipsey Russell as the Tin Man. Okay, so those 3 pretty big names. It was the worst movie ever made of a musical. I kid you not. Wow. And I love The Wiz. I think The Wiz is so fun to play. As a musician, it's fun to play. I don't like The Wizard of Oz, the musical, but I love The Wiz. The Wiz is so much fun.
And you think it was bad because it just should not be a film, or was it something that could have been better with this change or that kind of change?
Yes, to all of that. to all of that. It was so bad. I mean, it was made in, I think it was 1978.
Yeah,
I think something like that. And it was like, okay, hopefully maybe if they would make an updated version, it might have been better. Now, I think they did it on the NBC? They did it a few years ago. Like every Thanksgiving or Christmas, they did the musical. And I think they did The Wiz. Yeah. I think it was with Jennifer Hudson.
Okay, yeah. But that one was one of those, like, I think it was one of those live things.
So-called live, yes.
Yes. As opposed to making a movie.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. And it's like... It was so bad. So bad.
Boy.
But on the flip side of that, one of my percussion friends that I got to meet in New York when I was doing my Broadway run, he was the original guy who made up all of the percussion parts for the upcoming movie of West Side Story.
Really?
Yes.
That is so cool.
He got to play during rehearsals, and here he is playing his timbales and bongos and all that stuff with like 2 other percussionists that they hired to do the recording, and here he is playing his stuff for rehearsals and filming, and 10 feet away is Steven Spielberg.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
And his name is Javier Diaz. What an incredible percussionist he is. Wow. Incredible. And he also was one of the guys who was on the original Miami Sound Machine with Gloria Estefan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, he's absolutely great. And he is in the movie as one of the musicians, on camera and off camera in the recordings.
I'm so excited to see that. I'm probably going to have to do an episode after seeing that movie. Lucky Stiff, though. That always happens where we somehow it's and we accidentally talked about Seussical for a half hour in the Lucky Stiff episode.
It's important stuff.
So lucky Stiff, though. Okay, well, the funny thing about the movie, though, of Lucky Stiff, I was drawn to it, obviously, because I was, in the show, and I was like, oh, well, I like this show, so obviously I want to see how the movie is. But also, Jason Alexander is in it, and I really like Jason Alexander.
Yep. Great actor.
He played the role as role of Vinny, which is Rita's brother, and I liked him in it. Okay. And honestly, I liked each of the individual actors in the film version. It wasn't anything I didn't like what they did. It was just the whole production aspect of the film that just didn't work.
Gotcha.
It's almost like it had an element of trying too hard or something. That maybe might not be the best description, but if you ever see it, you'll know what I mean. Watch it with prepared with what I warned you about it, and you might it might be one of those things that's so bad it's actually enjoyable. It might be one of those things. Do you remember? And it's been a while since you worked this show, and obviously you're on this whole other element of the show. But do you remember the set for your shows when you were part of Lucky Stiff? Do you remember what the set situation was?
No, I didn't. I don't remember the set so much.
Okay.
We were for one show when I did it in northern Chicago. We were underneath the stage. So I couldn't.
Oh, okay.
So I never.
You barely saw it.
I honestly did not see it.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell you what it was like.
Interesting.
And the one when I did here in town or in Madison, we were behind stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw one setup. I would pop my head every once in a while. When we were on break or stuff like that, and it was oh, okay, that looks like a house. Okay, so the inside of a house. Okay, fine, great, and that's it. So I didn't even know really exactly what the set or the set changes look like because we were behind the set. So
I think when I was at Sunset, I remember we used these things called I call them pterodactyls. They're actually, I believe what they're actually called is periodactoids. They're basically these big tall pillars that are on wheels, and they can turn around to 4 different sides and move from side to side and things like that. And I remember that one of the most stressful things about the show was those pterodactyls. I do admit, I'm a director, actor, singer, choreographer, vocal director. Set stuff, nope. That is so far from my forte. I have so much appreciation for it, but the few times that I have had to, design a set, I do admit it should not fall on me because there's not that it'll be bad, but it'll be the only thing I know how to do is simple. And if we need something that's not simple, I'm not going to do a good. I know there's going to be just anyone else will come up with something so wildly more creative than me. And I feel like Lucky Stiff, I don't know. It is one of those shows where there are so many different locations. You have Harry's shoe shop, and then you have Monte Carlo, and then you have a hotel room, and then you have like, there's this one. It's my favorite. It's my favorite number. It's called Him, Them, It, Her, and it's the farciest. Is that a word? Farciest? It's
in this conversation, yes.
Yes, it's the farciest. It's probably most farcical, but I'm going to say farciest. It's the farciest scene in this musical farce, I think, because there is so much going on, and like. And you basically almost need like multiple locations, or just like a lot of lighting effects or something to suggest like, this is what's happening here. Now this is here, and this is happening here. Well, this is happening here. And it's so quick, but it's so funny. And I kind of feel like the set for Lucky Stiff, I feel like it either needs to be like the highest budget, quickest changing, most flexible type of thing ever, or just black box it, where everything is left up to the imagination. Because it is a show where there are like 1,000 different locations that you need to suggest.
Right. It's like, I do remember it because it is a smaller cast, right? It's a small cast. Is what, four or six?
Well, there's 4 ensemble members, and then there is Harry, Annabelle, Vinny, Rita, Luigi, and the Stiff. So that's 6. And the Stiff is the muted character. It's not, you usually just need like a physically comedic actor who doesn't need to sing, dance, or necessarily act, as long as they can act like a dead body. So there's 6, and then there's the 4 ensemble. So there's 10.
So 10. Okay, so 10. But you have 6 main characters.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So and it's like you said, it's you with the role that you played. You were...
I was in the ensemble.
Yeah, but you were playing multiple people.
I think it was like 16 different characters that I portrayed.
Right. So it's like, there's like, you have like to have, like, you've got your off stage, and it's like they have this one big hall just for Allison Chicorel's costume changes.
It was the wing. It was the backstage wing, and there was one part that was, and this actually goes down in kind of like my history theater career. I brag about this one. It was, and I bring this up anytime any of my actors complain about a quick change, like that this isn't enough time, this quick change is too demanding. It was a wig change, shoe change, pants change, and top change, and then an extra like kind of item on top of the top change. So basically everything that needed to be changed, and I needed to add gloves. Everything that needed to be changed had to be changed. And it was like 7 pieces of this change. And I did it in 13 seconds.
Yeah.
I had help. I had help. That's important to mention. I didn't do it alone. I had 2 dressers. But you had to get it down to like being a well-oiled machine. And that like, I feel like, and we started, I believe, if I recall correctly, we started working in those elements even a couple days before tech, just because that was going to be a whole beast in itself of this quick, because it wasn't just me. It was another ensemble, one other ensemble member too. And we each needed a team of dressers in order to make this change happen. But a full head to toe switch in 13 seconds. And anytime I have an actor complain that they have like, if they have to do like a wig change and they have 30 seconds and that's not enough, it's like, it's enough.
It's totally enough. You know why? Because I did this. I did that.
That's basically what I say. It's like, it's kind of like your Frozen experience on Broadway. It's like, if I was able to do this, you're able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Comparable to that is like with me playing percussion, like a little over a year ago, I played Beauty and the Beast. So I was playing the entire percussion book. So I played set and timpani and bells and chimes and gong and snares and this
the
and
whole
that
percussion.
and the kitchens. The whole percussion section was me, And I remember where I had to, play. I had to situate my percussion instruments in the right order so I could make I had two beats to put down a mallet and drop and get a pair of drumsticks in my hand. So I had 2 beats. So you have to. So I can totally sympathize with your element of costume changes versus my
machine.
Exactly. You just get in a groove, And then I think at the times where I would work with high school kids when I was teaching, and I would tell the percussionist, okay, you need to set up your pit in a way that you can, because I had done shows prior to this, but I told him, I said, you have to set up your pit so where you are not moving around like you're losing your mind, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. Because if I'm conducting and I see you going back and forth and back and forth, that means you don't have your pit set up properly to where you need to get to.
Yeah.
And so, it's a matter of, laying, mallets over here and percussion over here and this thing here and that little thing here. Well, you're going to need that instead of going from one end to the other end. It's like with your costumes, you need to after this scene, I've got these 4 things to do. Then the next scene, I have to make a switch. I have these 3 things. And the next thing I got 5. Well, I need to get those 5 together, not where they're interspersed with some other stuff that I don't need at that particular point.
And that's so funny. While all that, everything you just said, while all that is going on, and while my costume change is going on, the audience is just watching people sing and dance. They have no, it's so...
Exactly.
It's so funny. They have no idea. Unless they're a theater person themselves. For me, when I watch a show and I see an actor come out in one costume and then I see them come out in a different costume, and it was a quick change, I see that because I am an actor and director, and it's my brain thinks about those kinds of things and notices those things. My mom would never notice that. We had one for Annie in our production of Annie where we gave her this kind of, it wasn't just a quick change. I was going for the magical quick change, where she just stepped behind a wall and came out and then stepped out of the wall and she was in a different outfit. And I was shocked at how little of a response it got. And I was just kind of do you guys not remember what she was wearing when she was on the other side of the wall? Mm-hmm. And I was sort of people don't think about that. Non-theater people don't think about that kind of thing. They just watch the show and enjoy the singing and dancing. And people like you and me think about oh my gosh, this nutso stuff that's going on behind the scenes that has so much to do with the show and propels the show forward. But the audience doesn't know that because it's not happening on stage right in front of them. Correct.
When I'm playing percussion and I have to play multiple percussion instruments, I actually write down on the music where I have to go and what, when I did Beauty and the Beast, I had 4 sets of my percussion part.
Yeah.
I had 3 sets that were Xerox in a binder, and the other one by my drum set that I have now, I got into using an iPad. Oh
my gosh.
Oh my gosh. And so now with my iPad, which is great, is I have a little pedal that allows me to, while I'm playing, I can just move my foot over and it switches the music. I don't have to move it switches the page of music for me. So a lot of musicians now are using the iPads with a pedal. Yep. It's called an iPad pedal. And it just turns the music page for you, and you don't have to touch it. You just move.
And then if you double step on the pedal, does it flip backwards? In case you is there a way to go?
Yeah, you can program it, but I have what they call a dual. So I have 2 sides of the pedal. So if I push on the right side, it goes forward. If I push on the back, it goes back a page.
We had one musician use that, Josh Partman. I'm sure you know him. He was our accompanist for one show at the Box Theater, and he used. I remember it was the first time he was ever using it. And it was the first time we ever had a musician use it. And I'm going to be honest, I was that just seems scary. Because it's digital. It's that kind of thing where it's what if the iPad turns off? Do you know the show by heart? And of course, Josh, is brilliant at piano and could probably fake his way through it until he got the iPad fixed. But it's that sort of thing where it's you have paper, hard copy paper, nothing's going to necessarily malfunction with that paper, but an iPad can just go boop.
Exactly. The first time I used it, I was doing School of Rock. Okay. I was doing School of Rock, but I like you, I didn't trust technology at first. So I had my iPad, because it was very handy and I had everything there.
You had a hard copy there too?
But up above, I had the hard copies in the bullpen waiting just in case I needed them.
Yep, exactly. And that's smart. So Lucky Stiff. we do. This is fun. Get it because we get all these like inside facts about the pit orchestra that a lot of people don't know about. But now do you? And I know it's been a while, but to wrap up here, I would love to know if you had any. Because obviously you're a fan of Flaherty and Aaron's works. Do you have a particular favorite song from Lucky Stiff as far as like fun it was to play or scene or anything? Do you remember? I know it's been a while.
The one song, I believe it's in the first act, and I think, is it Harry that sings it?
There's one song called Lucky that he sings when he first gets to Monte Carlo, and he sings it to the dead body.
And I think that might be it. That's like my favorite song of the whole show.
It is overflowing with Seussical theme, that song.
Maybe that's why.
I hear so much Seussical in that particular song.
Yep.
Like, a lot. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where, when you hear, like, a Stephen Sondheim song, and even someone who wouldn't know, like a non-theater person who doesn't know what Sondheim is, they would hear that and like, oh, this kind of sounds like this other song that I've heard. And it's, of course, another Stephen Sondheim work.
Right.
I feel like Flaherty and Aaron's have so much of that, like, kind of theme that when you hear one song from one show, like you hear something from Seussical, like I hear a little bit of Seussical in Ragtime too, and in the opening number of Ragtime, I hear a little bit of The Things You Can Think, just a little bit, like, and I feel like
Lucky,
that's
right, there is a little bit,
and Lucky Stiff, I hear it too. And it's some sort of little like beat or style or something. Or maybe the instruments that they use in their scores or something, but there definitely is a style and a theme that runs through, and I love that because they're different enough. It's not like listening to the same thing over and over. They're different enough, but I love hearing a little bit of Seussical and Ragtime and a little bit of Once on This Island and Lucky Stiff and things like that. It's super super fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
As I said, my favorite obviously was. I mean, I liked Him, Them, It, Her. Which because it's the most farcical thing in the show, and I'm a huge like fangirl of anything farcical and ridiculous. But like I said, there's this brilliant song called Times Like This, and the full title, Times Like This, A Girl Could Use a Dog. Any dog lovers out there, listen to this song. It is the anthem. It is your anthem. It's so sweet. And it's still. I mean, it was my anthem when I was single, and I'm in a relationship now, and it is. I admit it's still my anthem. It's still, at the end of the day, I need my dog.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's why our dog's name is Coda.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a music.
And mine is Maestro.
Yes, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's
we
perfect.
both got musical dogs over here. Well, listen, to wrap up here, I suppose I should do what I should have done in the very beginning of this episode, which is just share a little bit more about what this show is about. I'm assuming y'all only came across this podcast if you know what Lucky Stiff is and wanted to listen to us talk about it. But if you're not familiar with Lucky Stiff, it's a musical farce, lots of mistaken identities and just craziness going on with this guy who gets this inheritance from his uncle that he never really knew, but it comes at a cost to get the inheritance. He has to take the dead body of his uncle to Monte Carlo because that was his dream that he wanted to do before he died. So it's basically this guy pushing around this stiff in a wheelchair, trying to not let anyone know that he's dead. And I know it sounds ridiculous. The whole point is that yes, it is. And then there's like other people trying to get the inheritance and an accidental murder and all this crazy stuff. But if you're a fan of Weekend at Bernie's and like that kind of humor with a dead body and dressing up a dead body to be a live person, check out Lucky Stiff. It's not the same plot, but it has that element to it that is again, I'm doing a terrible job at selling this show. Holy Christmas.
No, you're not. No, you're not. It's all good. It's all good.
So I think that's about time to wrap up here, Jim, but thank you so much for joining me to talk. It was so, like I said, it was so great to hear about like pit orchestra stuff. I haven't had that on the show yet. That was really interesting to get all the background stuff on that.
My pleasure. I'm honored that you asked me to be on your podcast, and it's always a pleasure to chat musical stuff, especially with another musical person. So absolutely, it was It's a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll just do some social stuff real quick. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find me on alli.chic. That's my Instagram, allie.chick. Otherwise, if you'd like to check out my little theater in outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Box Theater Company, we're also on Facebook and Instagram.
Please do. It's a great theater company. Please do.
Oh, thank you. So that's going to be it for today. Thanks again, Jim. That's our final bow, blackout, and curtain.